Welcome to the deep dive. I want to start off today by asking you to think about the last image you looked at.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe it was a painting in a museum over the weekend, or a billboard on your commute, or honestly, more than likely, it was a photo on your phone just a few seconds before you started playing this audio.
Right. Almost definitely a phone screen.
Yeah, and we usually think about the history of those images as this straightforward timeline. First, humanity figured out cave paintings, then eventually we got to the Renaissance, the Impressionists, modern photography, and finally digital art.
It's taught as this neat little line of evolving styles.
Exactly, a neat line of styles and meanings. But what if you threw that linear timeline out the window entirely? What if, instead of looking at art history like a timeline, you looked at it like geology?
Yeah, that concept is the paradigm shift we're exploring today. We are looking at a really thought-provoking essay titled A Stratified Model of Art History from Cave Walls to Quantum States.
It's quite a title.
It is. And it was put together by the artist Kenji Kojima in collaboration with a collective of anonymous AIs. And the core argument they presented completely rewrites how we understand the visual culture surrounding us every single day.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the central thesis of the essay is that art history is sedimentary. It operates as a stack of distinct layers, much like the strata of rock in the Earth's crust.
What's fascinating here is that the authors argue we shouldn't just be asking what an artwork represents or what the artist was feeling. We need to ask under what material and technical conditions that artwork even became possible to make in the first place.
Right, the material comes first.
Exactly. Every major transformation in human art happens because we cross a new material threshold. A new layer of technical capability accumulates. And the crucial takeaway is that a new material layer doesn't just casually influence the art. It actively enables and delimits what can even be thought or expressed by a society.
It literally sets the boundaries of imagination.
It does. And furthermore, none of these older geological layers ever truly disappear. They simply get built upon by the next technological leap.
The essay breaks this sedimentary model down into three different axes, and I think we need to define those before we journey into the layers themselves. So the first axis they mention is sequential time, but the text makes it clear this isn't just a chronological list of dates.
No, not at all. It's about the sequential crossing of technical thresholds.
Yeah.
It tracks the moments humanity figures out a fundamentally new way to manipulate matter. First, we figure out how to fix an image in place. Then centuries later, we figure out how to make it mobile, then automate it, and so on.
Right, and then the second axis is the physical layer itself.
The tangible stuff.
Yeah, the literal stuff. The limestone of a cave wall, a piece of stretched canvas, light-sensitive silver chemicals, all the way down to semiconductor circuits and silicon.
And the authors emphasize that these materials aren't just neutral carriers holding a picture. The physical properties of the material actively shape the boundaries of what can be stored and circulated.
The medium acts as the boundary line of the message.
And that boundary directly feeds into the third axis, which is the abstract axis. This is where the physical materials fundamentally transform human perception.
So it's not just about the art changing.
No, it's huge. With each new sedimentary layer, entirely new modes of human relation and thought become possible. The moment an image can suddenly travel across an ocean or manipulate the flow of time or become pure data, these are massive shifts in how humanity processes reality itself.
Which sets up the mission for our deep dive today perfectly. We are going to journey down through this geological stack together, layer by layer. And the goal is that by the time we hit the bottom, the way you look at every single image, especially that smartphone screen in your hand right now, is going to be completely transformed.
It really will change how you see things.
Let's go all the way back to the absolute foundation, the cave layer.
The origin point of the human image. We're talking about the Paleolithic caves, places like Lascaux and Altamira.
And when most people picture a cave painting, they imagine a hunter drawing a bison to tell a story or ensure a good hunt, right? But the source material highlights something deeply surprising. The true origin of art isn't representation.
It's adhesion.
Adhesion. It's the simple, miraculous discovery that colored earth and water can be made to stick to a limestone wall.
The gesture of making a mark becomes durable. The artist's physical attachment of pigment to the surface precedes any sophisticated ideas about perspective or narrative or even authorship.
Yeah.
The most striking example the authors use for this is the handprints found deep within these caves.
The technique behind those handprints is fascinating. The artist didn't just, look at their hand and try to paint a picture of it. They pressed their actual physical hand flat against the rock and blue pigment around it, often through a hollow bone or a reed.
Right, and that specific physical technique creates what the essay defines as an indexical condition.
Index.
Yeah, it's a vital concept for understanding image history. An indexical image isn't a symbol representing something else. It is the physical, forensic evidence of a body that was once there. The pigment's adhesion to the rock serves as proof of direct contact. The prehistoric body is long gone, but its presence is materially implied by the empty space left behind. It's a physical trace.
I was really struck by a detail in the text regarding how these images were actually experienced. We tend to think of cave paintings as static, right? They are literally fused to an immobile, permanent rock wall deep underground. But the perceptual experience of the person looking at them tens of thousands of years ago was incredibly dynamic.
You have to consider the environmental constraints of the cave. There is zero natural light down there. You only see these images by the illumination of a flickering torch or a small fire.
So the light is dancing, the shadows are rapidly shifting across these highly irregular, convex and concave rock formations, and the viewer is physically walking past them.
Under those flickering conditions, the painted animals would appear to tremble and move. They were perceptually animated.
They were basically the first movies.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
This establishes a foundational tension that runs through the entirety of art history, the tension between physical permanence and perceptual animation. The image is physically anchored to the stone, but temporally activated by the life in the viewer.
Wow.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this cave layer establishes the absolute baseline of our relationship with images. It establishes the concept of fixation. This is humanity's first ability to externalize our internal fragile memory into durable matter.
It's a foundational contract with time. We externalize the memory so it survives us. And the source makes the point that this contract hasn't gone anywhere. If you take a selfie today, that supposedly immaterial floating digital file still has to physically adhere to the solid-state memory inside your phone.
Or to a server rack in a massive data center.
Exactly. The core principle of adhesion from the Paleolithic cave is still the bedrock of visual culture.
It is the absolute foundation. But as human society evolved and grew more complex, we needed our images to do something a limestone cave wall fundamentally couldn't do. We needed the images to move with us.
Which brings us to the second threshold in the model, the canvas layer.
The moment we free the image from the architecture, we take it off the wall.
But the essay outlines that this liberation was a slow process. Society didn't just jump from a cave wall straight to a perfectly stretched, portable canvas.
No, there was a crucial intermediate step that defined the visual culture of the Byzantine and medieval periods. The wooden panel painted with egg tempera.
The artist is literally taking dry pigment and binding it with actual egg yolks. How does the chemical reality of an egg yolk dictate the kind of art that gets made?
Well, egg tempera is a highly restrictive medium because of its technical constraints.
Right.
Primarily, it dries incredibly fast. An artist cannot simply smear it around and smoothly blend colors on the wooden board. The medium demands to be applied in tiny, precise, overlapping cross-hatched lines.
Because you can't blend it smoothly, the resulting surface is very matte and almost flat. It would be terrible if your artist wanted to paint highly realistic, translucent human flesh or the subtle play of sunlight.
Right.
But the text notes this limitation was actually perfect for the societal needs of the time, which prioritized spiritual presence. The artwork wasn't supposed to look like a real flawed human being. It was meant to be a flat, immaterial revelation of divine essence.
Exactly. But as European society shifted toward humanism, an artist's desire to capture naturalistic representation, specifically the unique individuality of a person's face, that fast-drying egg tempera constraint became a massive roadblock.
The culture demanded a new aesthetic, but the material couldn't deliver it.
Right, they needed a new technical solution.
Yeah.
And they found it in the oil revolution.
Because oil dries so incredibly slowly, the fundamental rules of painting changed. Artists could finally mix and blend their colors directly on the surface of the work.
They could build up dozens of microscopic translucent glazes over months.
Suddenly, you could render the exact way light hits a cheekbone, or the precise softness of human skin. The material shift from egg to oil shifted the focus of art from theological icons to highly individual portraits. The paint itself allowed for human individuality to take center stage.
And when you pair that slow-drying, realistic oil paint with the newly perfected technology of stretched canvas, the entire paradigm of the image shifts.
Canvas being this highly durable, flexible material that was already being heavily utilized during the Age of Discovery for ship sails.
Yes, When you stretch that sailcloth over a wooden frame and paint on it, the image suddenly becomes a fully autonomous, lightweight, mobile object.
It's no longer a fresco permanently plastered to a church wall or a heavy wooden altar panel. It can be rolled up in a tube. It can cross an ocean on one of those very ships.
It can be bought, sold, and traded in secular markets. The image was finally unmoored from sacred architecture and free to circulate globally.
The physical support transformed to allow for mobility, but the core function of fixation remained intact. We simply mobilized the sediment.
Exactly. But for centuries, whether it was clay on a cave wall or oil on a portable canvas, the image was always generated by the manual labor of a human hand. That remains true until humanity crosses the third major stratum in Kojima's model, the photographic layer.
The displacement of the hand entirely. This is where the narrative brings in figures like Louis Daguerre and William Henry Fox Talbot in the 19th century. For the first time in human history, the image isn't painted, drawn, or manually constructed.
Light itself becomes the active agent.
Light bounces off a subject in the real world and chemically imprints itself directly onto a plate coated with silver salts.
The human brushstroke and all the subjectivity that comes with it entirely disappears. In its place, society gets automation and mechanical vision. This completely redefined the role of the artist. You are no longer an artisanal image maker painstakingly crafting a representation. You are the operator of an apparatus. The machine mediates the vision.
It also radically alters the timeline of creation. An oil painting required months of laborious, slow layering. The camera compresses time into a fraction of a second.
And that temporal compression, combined with the inherently mechanical nature of the chemical process, gave photography an immense level of cultural authority. It became widely viewed as objective, unassailable evidence, a truth-telling device that simply records reality rather than interpreting it.
And this archival, supposedly objective power of the photograph is exactly what the artist Kenji Kojima explores in the specific projects highlighted in the source material.
Right.
The essay specifically mentions his projects Billy the Kid and Great Depression. Kojima takes these incredibly famous, highly recognizable, almost mythic historical photographs, images that are completely baked into our collective memory, and he puts them through a translation process. He takes the visual information and turns it into raw binary code or plotted visual data.
Yeah.
What is the intended effect of stripping away the familiar visual of a historical icon and replacing it with data?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Kojima is doing something profound with that translation. He isn't just offering a new artistic interpretation of history. By reprocessing these deeply familiar photographs into cold, raw data arrays, he is actively exposing the mechanical and computational substrate of how our collective memory is actually formed.
Oh, wow.
He is forcing the viewer to confront the fact that these famous historical photos aren't transparent windows into the past. They are data generated by a mechanical apparatus.
He strips away the emotional resonance of the image to show us the geological layer beneath it. He forces us to look at the machinery itself.
Yes.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Photography automated human vision and unbound the image from the artist's hand. But the next sedimentary layer, the film layer, engineers time itself.
You move into the era of pioneers like Lumière and Méliès. If photography unbinds the image from the hand, the essay argues that film unbinds the photograph from its isolation. It slices continuous time into discrete temporal atoms.
Temporal atoms. That is a brilliant way to phrase it. You have a strip of celluloid, and the continuous flow of time is literally chopped up into individual, separate, static boxes.
And this creates a brand new mechanical illusion, the illusion of continuity. When you take those discrete, separated still frames and project them in a dark room at a precise rate of 16 or 24 frames per second, the human brain cannot process the gaps. It perceives a smooth, continuous flow of reality.
And consider the physical environment of that dark room. It's a collective enclosure. People are sitting together in the pitch black, watching light play on a wall to perceive animated movement.
It structurally and psychologically echoes the cave layer we started with, except the irregular rock wall has been replaced by a flat screen, and the flickering torch has been replaced by a mechanical projector.
That's incredible. But the true power of the film layer goes far beyond just capturing realistic movement. The source material emphasizes that the real revolution of film is montage. It's the power of editing. Because once time is chopped into physical pieces of celluloid, those pieces can be physically cut and rearranged.
The essay provides a brilliant classic example of how montage constructs meaning. If an editor shows an audience a shot of a person's neutral face and then cuts to a shot of an empty, desolate landscape, The viewer immediately projects a sense of longing onto that face.
Right.
But if the editor shows the exact same shot of the neutral face and then cuts to a shot of a coffin, the viewer instantly perceives deep grief.
Hmm.
The meaning isn't contained in the picture of the face itself. The meaning is constructed materially through the sequential arrangement of the images.
Time and meaning become entirely manipulable. And the text argues this did something profound to human cognition over the course of the 20th century. Film naturalized the idea of discretization.
Yes.
It actively trained the modern consciousness to understand that a smooth, continuous flow of reality can actually be assembled from tiny, discrete, separate units.
And that psychological training is exactly what prepared human perception for the world we live in today. Learning to accept 24 discrete frames as a continuous reality paved the exact psychological path for humanity to accept pixels and digital bits.
Which brings us to the most abstract jump in the entire model, the digital and binary layers.
The complete collapse of the material trace.
In the digital layer, the image finally ceases to be a physical deposit of pigment on canvas, and it ceases to be a chemical trace of light on silver salts. It becomes a purely numerical structure.
It becomes a matrix. When you look at a digital photograph, you are not actually looking at an image in the traditional sense. You are looking at a vast array of X and Y coordinates.
Yeah.
And each of those coordinates is simply holding numerical intensity values for red, green, and blue. The image is literally reduced to mathematics.
The consequences of turning an image into math are staggering. Because the image is numerical, it possesses algorithmic authenticity. It can be perfectly, flawlessly reproduced a billion times without any physical degradation. An analog VHS tape or a film strip degrades every single time you play it or copy it. A digital file does not age.
And that perfect reproducibility completely destroys the idea of indexical authority we discussed earlier. There is no original physical object that was there to capture the trace. Because there is no original and copies are infinite and perfect, scarcity, the thing that traditionally gives art its value, has to be artificially created by the system.
Right, through things like DRM or...
Exactly. The role of the artist shifts once again. They are no longer an image maker. They must become a system designer to navigate this new layer.
But the model pushes us to go even deeper. Beneath the digital layer lies the absolute foundation of our current era, the binary abyss. Because underneath those RGB coordinate values, the math reduces even further.
It reduces down to the smallest possible unit of information in the universe, 0 and 1, on and off, voltage and no voltage.
At this foundational level, aesthetics itself becomes computation. The medium of art is no longer paint or silver salts or celluloid. The medium is Boolean algebra.
It is logical conjunction and disjunction. Millions of microscopic logic gates making yes or no decisions at incomprehensible speeds. The smooth, beautiful continuity you see on a high-definition 4K screen is actually a massive statistical illusion. It is entirely sustained by computer processors switching electrical states billions of times every single second.
I want you to really think about the screen you're looking at right now. The image you see isn't actually there, not in any physical, tangible sense. It exists purely as a patterned electricity running through a microscopic switching network. It's only visible to you because a highly complex software protocol is interpreting those electrical switches and telling the physical pixels on your screen to light up in a specific pattern.
This brings us to the grand synthesis of Kojima and the AI Collective's geological model. We must remember, the golden rule of the strata: no layer is ever truly deleted. They stack and accumulate. When you take a quick digital photo with your smartphone today, you are simultaneously utilizing the entire history of these geological strata.
So, what does this all mean? It means everything is active at once. You are using the binary logic of code. You are using the frame sequence logic of cinema when you shoot a video. You're utilizing the mechanical automated eye of photography with the phone's intricate camera lens.
The glass screen itself is the highly portable, mobile surface inherited from the stretched canvas of the Renaissance.
And the fact that the data saves to your phone's memory chip at all. That is the foundational data storage concept of fixation that humanity invented using mud on the walls of a Paleolithic cave.
It's a compression of all human history into a pocket-sized device. Understanding this sedimentary model completely shifts your relationship with the visual world. The thousands of images bombarding your daily life on social media feeds, on news websites, and targeted advertisements, they aren't just passive pictures hanging on a wall.
They are operational data. They are functioning actively within global cybernetic systems. They're being constantly tracked, algorithmically sorted, and fed into massive machine learning models. They don't just sit there and represent the world to you anymore. They actively act upon the world.
They are active nodes in an endless informational circulation. Recognizing that is a sobering but incredibly empowering way to view the media landscape you navigate every single day.
It gives you X-ray vision for the modern world. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, totally mind-bending thought that is teased at the very end of our source material. Because human history isn't over, the layers are still accumulating. The essay references the pioneering physicists Heisenberg and Bohr to ask a profound question about the future of the image.
Oh, this is the quantum aspect.
Exactly. Right now, our foundational layer is the binary state. A microscopic switch is either a 0 or a 1. But what happens when art fully crosses the threshold into the quantum layer?
This raises an important question. In quantum computing, information is stored in a qubit. And unlike classical computing, a qubit doesn't have to be just a definitive 0 or a definitive 1. It exists in a probabilistic superposition. It can occupy multiple states simultaneously right up until the exact moment it is observed and forced to collapse into a single state.
Think about the implications of that for visual culture. If an image is stored in a quantum state, does the image even truly exist before you look at it?
It's wild to think about.
If an art piece literally inhabits entirely different realities all at once, how is that going to reorganize human perception next? We went from flickering firelight making cave paintings appear to move to quantum physics determining if an image even exists prior to observation.
The horizon of human expression and technical capability is always expanding. The next geological layer is already beginning to settle over us.
Something for you to mull over the next time you casually scroll past a photo. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the strata. We will catch you on the next deep dive.